So I've laid in a gray to blue blend for the sky with a slight lightening at the horizon. And I'm just going to, normally I wouldn't bother with putting in a masking tape line on something this small, but I just wanted to show you this technique. And I'm sure you've all seen masking tape applied before. So we're just going to see if we can see that line. So this is, and if you buy my techniques book, you'll see a little bit more on this tape, but this is just dollar store painter's tape. And so what you may not know is this little trick of, this is fairly fresh paint, so I don't want to burnish that tape down, but even if it had been there for a while, I'm going to just run some gel medium, and I prefer the gel medium, but you can use any medium. The gel medium, we're just going along there, and we're only concerned about where it's meeting the edge. And the whole point of this is that the gel medium leaks, so I'm actually pushing it into the tape seam. I want it to leak under and block any paint from going under. And so now I'm going to, I don't have to wait for that to dry. I'm just going to start in, I just want to put, so that's roughly where we're going to do the water. So I'm going to see if any of that yellow is still active. Get some white in there. So we're doing the far shore. So that's phthalo blue, yellow light. Any yellow will do it. But I think we just want it a little bit darker. And we know it's going to dry darker. I think I'm going to mix up a bit more of that. So that Scottish background keeps getting me on the not really mixing enough. So we're just going to run that right along that top edge. So now we're looking at our image, and we'll see that that's moving into, it gets a little bit lighter and a little bit more desaturated. So I've added some burnt sienna along with some white. And the advantage to sliding along when you're mixing here is that I can see what I had mixed previously to see that we are getting a sufficient shift. So now we are going to push that farther with more white. Come back a bit. Now, when you're looking at the reference picture, you can see that there is blue, a lot of blue reflecting in the water, but that's not something that we're going to worry about in this base coat. We're mostly looking at that. I think we're just going to push that a little bit more into the green side. Really not mixing up enough paint as I'm going here, so we're out of yellow. Do not need to put down very much of that. I think it needs to be a little bit more. It's ultramarine added just to desaturate that a bit. Now, when you've used this technique, take that masking tape off as soon as possible so that you don't. Looks like we had a small amount of leakage right there, but not too bad. But take that tape off because you don't want it, especially on fresh paint like it was, you don't want that to stick. So we're just going to find the vanishing point that we're going to use here. So I'm going to take the horizon and just do a chalk line on the top of my palette there. And so we'll probably we're going to use one out here somewhere, so these only need to be approximate lines, so we'll just do that, and then we're going to do one a little bit closer to the horizon. Our vanishing point is sort of targeted out here somewhere. I could get a longer ruler, but it would be quite a bit longer. So as we're coming forward, we're increasing this space between the waves. It doesn't have to match what's there exactly. And so this last one has a fairly big gap. So we're just going to give that a little bit more shape. This one will end. So a lot of these are intermittent. These breaking waves is caused by the sandbars and the shape of the lake bottom that control where they break. So we're just going to Okay, we're going to take that lid off now. We're just going to, this is possibly a little bit on the light side. You can see it's a long way from white, but this is not much more than the drawing at this point. So these are some of the tracers that are coming out of the back of that. I think we're going to switch to a much smaller brush. We're going to use a, I don't know what it is, the number's long gone, but it's probably around a number 2 rigger. And we're going a little bit darker. We will be getting lighter than that. But once we've got these waves marked in, we can take the chalk off. Not right up on the tip. I'm sort of using the brush at an angle and pushing down to get, and lifting up to get the thinner lines. We're going to see, put another one. Whoops, that's got a little. Back here, due to the distance and the elevation, a lot of these waves are starting to run together. They're not actually joining, it's just because of the low perspective. We have that got a little bit on the large side. A little bit of a splash there. This is just a wet brush that I'm using to soften some of those edges. You don't want too much water in that. That one's got a bit dry. Not going to worry too much about that. So we're just going to check this color out. I don't think it's dark enough. We're just going to do that shadow under that lead wave. And it's sort of in this greenish tone. Still don't think, now we know that's going to dry darker, but I don't think it's going to dry darker enough. I'm just going to put a little bit of ultramarine blue in there. And we're going to be coming over top of this with some of the white water. Masking some of it and letting more of it show. That's just water glazing that down. This is some of the blue sky reflecting into that first or last wave trough. Hard to know where to count from, but so we're just going to start lightening up these crashing waves. We'll start at the back. That's maybe a little too light. We don't want these back ones to have the same intense white that we'll use on the front ones. I'm going to take off the chalk lines. I let that dry. I just want to make sure that the chalk isn't showing off what we're looking at, making the waves seem more complete than they are. Okay, I use the blue shop towels to do that because they're less likely to ball. These are pretty straight. And just as we come down, do they start to angle a little bit more? And trying not to cover all the blue that's in there. This dead wave here really has a very broken lead edge. It does have a very slight shadow color, and it really is in these earth tones. So I'm just going to I think that's a little too dark. We're skipping that section there because it's on the back side and the shadow's not likely to be seen. GoPro, stop recording. the back part of this wave seems to have a little bit more light, or rather less light than the front part. So we're going to put that split, or that little bit of dark in the middle, or leave that dark. This brush has this little splay in there, so I think that's time to retire that brush. Yeah, you can roll it in paint to get that out of there, but we don't want to have to keep doing that. So I've got a number 1 here. Let's see. That's a bit better. We're just working on the back part of this nearly dead wave, and I'm just using a little bit of a it's quite desaturated green and not particularly light value. We want to watch carefully that we're not creating some kind of pattern. And the best way to avoid that pattern is to keep looking at the reference. It never matters exactly where you're putting this. You're looking to the reference to get an idea of what the back of this wave looks like. So when you're painting in this foreground, it seems very chaotic, but there is quite a lot of patterning and groupings of values. So try to mimic that somewhat so that it's not just a series of dabs and daubs. Like it definitely, the blue seems to die out down in this lower portion, so I've still got a little bit of blue mixing in with the earth tone of the sand. And this color I'm using now is ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and lots of white. Right under the front of the waves, there is a little bit of highlight reflection of the white water. Just going to soften some of these marks here of that I was putting in to show where the wet sand, and I'm going to do that with a glaze. I don't think that's quite light enough. So this is a clean brush now. We're just going to soften that edge a bit. I think we're going to get a, oh, we'll just do it with this one. We'll just dry that off with a paper towel to take a little bit more of that off. So I'm just going to get pretty close to white here. So this is pure white that we're putting down now. Not going to put a lot of it. When I come back, I just think we need a little bit more. This is not pure white. This is some of the blue tinted. Just think that one needed bringing out a bit.